Let's begin with Gaza. The war-induced hunger crisis in Gaza has shifted the position of many global leaders in just the past few days. It has also intensified criticism against Israel's actions in Gaza and the ramifications that innocent Palestinians are suffering. Pressure is increasing on Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. Harrowing visuals from a few cities in Gaza show thousands of Palestinians scrambling for the little aid that does make it inside the enclave. Global monitors and humanitarian groups are sounding an alarm on the starvation in Gaza, particularly the malnutrition and other hunger-related causes killing children under the age of 5. Gaza health authorities have been reporting more and more people dying from hunger-related causes. 7 people have died due to starvation today, with total death toll due to hunger reaching 154.
Is this the aid that is falling? It all scatters on the ground. Everything is damaged while falling midair. What are we getting? Sand? This is a kind of humiliation. We are begging you to stop the war on us and bring us food so we can eat.
Water remains a critical issue in Gaza. Over 80% of Gaza's water infrastructure is in ruins. Now UAE has stepped up to address the issue. UAE has initiated work for 7-kilometer pipeline to carry desalinated water from Egypt into southern Gaza. The project could eventually aid 600,000 people daily. Unprecedented global outrage in the past few days has pushed Israel to send in more aid. Early in the day, dozens of trucks carrying aid were seen passing through the Egypt-Gaza border, but it is just a drop in the ocean after months of Israeli blockade further escalated the catastrophe. The harrowing images of starved children has also opened the floodgates of condemnation from high-profile Israelis. 31 Israeli signatories have written a letter to UK newspaper The Guardian. The signatories are all from walks of life, including academicians, artists and public intellectuals. The letter calls for crippling sanctions by the global community on Israel for starving Palestinians in Gaza. The list of signatories includes some high-profile names like Academy Award winner Yuval Abraham, former Attorney General of Israel Michael Ben Yair, former Speaker of the Knesset Avraham Burg, and many others. Pressure is mounting on Netanyahu. While leaders are calling out Israel for hunger crisis in Gaza, Jordan's King Abdullah II called the situation in Gaza the worst humanitarian catastrophe in modern history. Israel is facing the heat from some of its biggest allies as well. President Trump has said that he and First Lady Melania Trump have been deeply affected by the images of famine and starvation coming out of Gaza. The remarks follow UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer's statement on recognizing Palestinian statehood in September unless Israel takes certain steps demanded by the UK. Ending the war in Gaza is one of them. Well, Netanyahu has reacted strongly against the growing support for two-state solution, but the images coming out of Gaza and repeated warnings of the region reaching a point of no return are pushing the Israeli Prime Minister into a corner.
Meanwhile, you got this. A third person's been arrested in connection with that violent brawl at 3 o'clock in the morning, late Friday night, early Saturday morning in Cincinnati. The video is graphic. The street fight caught national attention when videos of the incident went viral. With even the White House weighing in on it. 3 suspects are being charged with felony assault and aggravated riot. CB Cotton's got the follow-up. She's live in New York City, and some of this has history for those involved. And CB, good morning to you.
Bill, good morning. We've learned the FBI has now opened an investigation into that vicious brawl, as 3 out of the 5 suspects who've been arrested so far are expected to be arraigned this morning. The 2 men and 1 woman are now all facing charges of felony assault and aggravated riot. The suspect in the middle of your screen, Montanez Merriweather, was indicted earlier this month on other felony charges. According to Cincinnati's police union, which sounded off on the court system, saying Merriweather only had to pay $400 to post bail and walk out of jail on those previous charges. In the horrific video, you can see a white man being repeatedly punched and kicked by a group of black men and women in downtown Cincinnati on Saturday at around 3 a.m. Then you see a woman get knocked out cold with blood on her face, and bystanders are just recording on their phones instead of stepping in. Cincinnati's police chief, Teresa Thigi, said only 1 person called 911 in a crowd of 100 or so people, but police haven't said what led to the fight, and the outrage continues to grow as people demand to know why the brutal attack even took place. U.S. Republican Senator John Husted from Ohio said he talked with 3 of the victims.
I called all 3 of them. There may have been more in conversations with them. They didn't understand why. I know maybe more facts will come out in this situation, but this is the point that's true. This is happening in America across our cities like it did in Cincinnati. It's not tolerable.
So the police chief said at a public safety meeting last night that she will not tolerate lawlessness on the streets of Cincinnati.
Okay, all right. Thanks, CB. We're going to continue to watch that and see what we get.
City and surrounds are being baked by a powerful heat wave as millions struggle with record-breaking temperatures.
Let's go live to 9 US correspondent Reed Butler in Manhattan. Reed, good morning to you. So there is an extreme heat warning. You're feeling it yourself, aren't you?
Guys, I don't know if this is the correct meteorological way to describe it, but it is hotter than a bunning snag on a barbecue right now here in New York City. 3 days of heat wave, record-breaking heat wave at LaGuardia. It's the hottest it's been since the 1940s, nudging 40 degrees. But what makes it so bad right now is this humidity, right? It's probably feels like 42, 43, that kind of swampy feeling that you just get sweaty just standing still. Most Aussies inside. We haven't been able to find any out here in Times Square. They're too smart to be out in this heat, but we did find some British tourists.
Just walking slowly, taking on lots of water.
Yeah.
This hat soaks up quite a lot of sweat, so that's quite handy.
That's good.
But yeah, it is quite shocking.
It's a lot hotter than Cornwall.
Yeah.
This is, yeah, you're not in Cornwall anymore, mate.
No,
not
no, absolutely not.
No.
But hey, it's all good, we're on holiday. Yeah. And the beer's cold.
So people doing what they can to beat this oppressive heat. Spare a thought, though, for that guy. That would be tough and feels like 42 degrees. What on earth, guys?
What is he doing?
I reckon the only thing that smells worse, than inside that suit is all the piles of rubbish on the sides of the road here in New York.
Oh,
it ain't great.
It is
the
a
heat
dirty
and the
city
stench.
at times, yeah. And what about the Poms? They kind of roast in the
They
sun.
do,
like,
don't they?
Like lobster
like
in a pot.
lobsters, exactly. Stay cool, Reed, if you
Thank you,
can.
Reed.
Thank you, mate.
One of the strongest earthquakes ever recorded struck off the Russian east coast a few hours ago.
This is the largest earthquake we've had in over a decade worldwide. And it's among the top 10 earthquakes that have been measured by humans in the last century and a half. And so it's quite a large earthquake. What happens is that close by the earthquake on the coastline of Kamchatka, the tsunami was probably quite enormous and damaging, but the coastline itself is very sparsely populated. The main city in Kamchatka, about 150,000 people, is actually in a harbor that's somewhat protected from that. But when the wave that's set up there, again, this earthquake basically moves the seafloor upward by roughly a meter, a few feet, something like that. and that leads to a bulge of water that starts traveling across the ocean.
Tsunami alerts in force for millions throughout the Pacific region. The tsunami threat triggered by a massive 8.8 magnitude quake that struck Russia's Far East hours ago. The first waves hitting Russia and Japan, where nearly 2 million people have been evacuated. This is video from Japan's second biggest island, Hokkaido, where people fled to the highest rooftops that they could find.
A megathrust earthquake. It happens at a subduction zone. A tectonic plate is going under another, and part of the surface of the ocean is thrust up. Think of a continental plate being thrust up, and it's the push of water from down below that creates the tsunami. There's a lot of energy being pushed out. Now, if you are standing on a boat in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, you might not even notice.
We are getting some pretty remarkable images from where this earthquake struck, when it first struck, off the far east coast of Russia. At the time this happened, doctors in a cancer center were performing a surgery and had to basically hold the patient, as you see there, hold on to the equipment in the operating room, as well as steady themselves. Just an indication of how dramatic this was.
Over in Hawaii, there was a lot of chaos in the hours leading up to the waves coming ashore there, where there was flooding and there were waves almost to 6 feet high. And as they told people to evacuate, there was a logjam of traffic as people were trying to make their way up to higher elevations, up to buildings 4 stories or higher. Here in Southern California, officials are the most concerned about the current. They're asking people here in LA County to stay out of the water. They're clearing the beaches. They've cleared all the events. They're asking RVs to move because, yes, there wasn't any significant damage here. There wasn't any flooding, which is great news, but these waves are strong.
I want to take you to Russia, where a volcano in this general proximity of this earthquake zone is now erupting. We've seen images of lava oozing from the side of the volcano. Authorities have reported explosions. In fact, there are some tourists in the area who've said they want to stay to watch the eruption. So that is all taking place as this earthquake struck this far east coast of Russia several hours before.
This morning, a newly discovered comet is creating buzz in both the scientific and speculative circles.
Some are calling it a rare interstellar visitor. Others say it could be something much more. So we got the perfect guy for this to try to get to the bottom of it, figure it out. Smart guy in the room. Call Joe Cortez, live in studio with more from a Harvard professor.
See, at first, Pat, I thought you were referring to the Harvard professor, but I thank you for that. So, well, that tiny moving object you just saw on your screen was spotted about 2 weeks ago by a telescope in Chile. So it's traveling 135,000 miles per hour, too fast to originate from our solar system. It's only the third object ever confirmed to come from outside of our solar system, being designated as 3I Atlas. NASA scientists say it has no threat to Earth, but its unusual course, sweeping past Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, has some wondering if it's more than just a space rock. This particular comet was picked out of the intergalactic haystack by NASA's Atlas system, meant to detect asteroids that might hit Earth. Now, Harvard professor Avi Loeb, who's known for his research on alien life, says the object's path appears intelligently directed, and he suggests that we should have a risk assessment scale in place.
We should assess the risk given the data that we have. It's just like the Richter scale for assessing the risk from earthquakes. 0 would be a natural object like a comet. 10 would be an object that maneuvers as if it has an engine that is definitely technological. And then there should be some policymakers deciding how to respond to that.
Now, 3I Atlas is expected to reach its closest point to the sun October 29th. That gives scientists a very small window to try to figure out where it came from and what it really is.
All right, I'm putting it in my calendar right now. Possible alien visitation late October.
That's, you never know. I mean, we were discussing it. Superman, Thor, it could be anybody. or
I
anything.
think it's a better chance of an alien visitation than Superman or Thor.
Man.
Hate to break the news to you.
I'm out. Well, October is going to be a lot different weather-wise if they do visit, because if they visited now, it would be a little hot.
It's a nice time of year to visit New England here in late October.
Well, as the Trump administration accelerates its immigration agenda, ICE is hiring, and they're offering some sweet perks: a $50,000 signing bonus, student loan repayment and forgiveness options, and enhanced retirement benefits, to name a few. President Trump posting this on Truth Social. Our brave ICE law enforcement agents are getting the worst of the worst criminals out of our country: terrorists, pedophiles, MS-13 gang members, murderers, rapists, drug and human traffickers. We need more courageous men and women to make America safe again. Join ICE now, and we will take great care of you, just like you take care of us. Martha, we've seen historic record recruitment in the military, so will we see the same surge with ICE, especially with these great benefits?
I think so. I had an opportunity, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, went down to Texas and interviewed a group of ICE agents, because I wanted to see what they were like as people, and I wanted our viewers to get to know them a little bit. They were very committed to upholding the law in the country. Most of them were first-generation Americans themselves, second in some cases, but they don't see it as as an ethnic-based issue. They see it as upholding the law and keeping people safe on the streets of and the towns in Texas. So I just thought they inspired me, and they were just serious young people. And I think you're going to see a lot more of them. And I think it's good to have these kind of incentive programs. They got, I think, $65 billion to hire more people in ICE in the big, beautiful bill. And they're going to put it to work. I think you're going to see a lot more of these, tent areas going up to hold people, because they want to discourage they want to discourage people coming in. They want to uphold the law.
Yeah, and as we've seen a lot of negative publicity coming from the legacy media, and certainly people that aren't grateful for the sheer blessing of living here against ICE agents, the reality is, from reports from those agents, that morale has never been higher. So it's really an incredible place to be right now because of the support of the administration and the president and the patriots here that are so grateful for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's vastly different when you're working for someone who wants you to work for them, and when you're working for someone who supports you and you have a shared mission. You contrast that with some of these blue ultra-liberal cities like Chicago, where, the police officers are demoralized. So you've got a lot of people who might have otherwise applied to these jobs with Chicago PD and NYPD, and now they're looking at federal law enforcement because they do have these enhanced benefits and signing bonuses and student loan repayment, and they're going to work for a department that supports them. And, that is far more attractive, and it's unfortunate that we've come to this bifurcation between local and federal law enforcement, but, that's the natural fallout when you have progressive, socialistic ideas that are essentially anti-cop. So they look for different avenues to keep their communities and the country safe.
Yeah, we've covered that a lot here on this network, Kilmeade, that in these Democratic blue cities, the local law enforcement, it's harder dealing with the bureaucracy that doesn't support them rather than the criminals on the streets. So they're fleeing to areas where they are wanted and valued. And here that includes ICE.
Well, I'll tell you what, they're not wanted and valued in a lot of these cities, these mayors, and there's a lot of negativity out there. Every lawmaker, Democratic lawmaker, seems to be making some type of ridiculous, irresponsible statement about wearing masks. Assaults on ICE agents are up 830%. And their message is interesting. It says they call on you, your country's calling on you to serve, rather than this is a great career opportunity. So they got to come out. I'm going to make a suggestion now. So if they're at the White House, they want to get a pen ready. Give them a second. All right, good. How about some image ads of people doing out in the field and getting some sound bites from people saying, this criminal was on my street. We had no idea what was going on in that house. We were able to raid it, take it out. It's made everything safer. We could talk about different places where MS-13 has been extracted out right on Long Island. So start creating some of that better stuff as opposed to the negative news stories.
And that's our job as journalists. Excuse me for a second, because I just want to make sure that viewers understand this, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it, is the Michigan lawmakers that have now introduced it, they will criminalize these agents in the course of their duties wearing a mask.
I know. It's crazy.
They are spending your tax dollars to prosecute law enforcement for wearing masks when they're busy being doxxed and threatened. And so no wonder, Harris, that these benefits of ICE in these other sunshine cities are so much greater for the health of their families.
Well, look, it goes all the way to the top. The minority leader in the House is Hakeem Jeffries, and he has been not just a fan of unmasking and endangering, because that's what it does. It endangers the life of those who are serving in that capacity. So when you have that kind of leadership, it leads me to believe that if they can somehow gain votes in the House in the midterms, I could see them trying to codify something like that. I mean, it's absolutely horrifying that they would be undercut. I like a couple of things about this. For one, we know it works. It worked for police officers in Florida, the handout of cash. It may come in the form of, well, it's already part of the salary, but when you give somebody something up front, you're already telling them you appreciate them. And about 20%, like 19.5 or so of our police force is former military. I can see some of that same group of military veterans saying, they're asking me to serve again. Right. I'm going to go answer the call. I mean, it's right in the wheelhouse of the people who already love the country. And in terms of finding people who have benefited from Trump's policies and keeping Americans safe for MS-13 and those worst of the worst that Tom Homan and DHS have picked up, that's our job as journalists, too. I don't see enough of it across the board. I don't see any of it on liberal networks. And so there's an opportunity for us to step in, I think, as journalists, too, and to do that.
Immigration raids are ramping up nationwide under President Trump. From rural towns to major metro areas, ICE operations are touching nearly every single corner of the country. ICE agents are fanning out into neighborhoods from Los Angeles to Sioux Falls and Omaha, making arrests, detaining undocumented individuals, and in some cases sparking backlash from locals. NewsNation has confirmed that in just the last 30 days, more than 50 cities have seen major enforcement activity, and some state leaders are now deploying their own resources to help ICE carry out those missions. Joining me now is Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, former acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement under President Trump. Tom, thank you so much for being here this morning. Appreciate it, sir.
Thanks for having me.
For starters, we know the White House stated that your initial intention was to go after the worst of the worst, but we've heard of many cases in which ICE has rounded up immigrants at work and court hearings whose only offense is being here illegally. Could you clarify who the White House is targeting in these raids?
Well, look, there's a big false narrative out there about what ICE is doing. I read it in the paper every day, and it's a false story. Because I look at the numbers every day. So looking at everybody we've arrested since January 20th, 70% of those we arrest, 70, are criminal aliens. Who are the other 30%? The other 30% are national security threats. These are like the over 300 Iranian nationals we've arrested in the last couple of weeks. These are people who our intelligence community has designated national security threats, or they're affiliated with a terrorist organization. We have to arrest them and remove them from the country. Who are the remaining 30%? Many of those are final order cases. These are illegal aliens who had due process at great taxpayer expense, and a federal judge ordered them deported. ICE has to deport them. That's what the law declares. That's what statute requires. So ICE is simply doing their job, removing those with final orders. Those are public safety threats and national security threats, and the numbers prove it. But the false narrative is we're arresting innocent people, we're disappearing people, we're kidnapping people. ICE is doing the same job they've done for decades. I started in 1984. We're doing the same thing we did back then, enforcing the law.
Do you know how many people, you bring up percentages. I'm just curious if you also have the number of people that you've rounded up or arrested whose only offense is being here in the country illegally. And what do you say to people who, are worried about these tactics from the White House?
Well, look, first of all, as I said, the majority of people arrested are national security threats and public safety threats. Anybody can look at those numbers and see that. But look, we're going to enforce the immigration law. There's nothing in the immigration law that says enter the country illegally, it's a crime, you can stay. As long as you don't commit another crime, you're free to go. Because if that's the message we're going to send the entire world, you're never going to fix the border problem. That's what the last administration did. The Secretary Mayorkas and President Biden told ICE agents, you can't arrest somebody for simply being here illegally. They have to be convicted of a serious crime before you can target them for arrest. And look what happened. When you send that message to the entire world, they're going to come to the greatest nation on earth and cross the border illegally, which is a crime, get ordered removed by a federal judge after due process, don't worry about it, we're not going to remove you. If that's the message we send, you're going to see thousands and thousands of more people coming to the border, which means more women and children die making that journey, which means Border Patrol gets overwhelmed, more fentanyl comes to kill Americans, more known suspected terrorists cross the border because the Border Patrol is overwhelmed. What people think is innocent illegal immigration. No, we got to secure the border. And part of the securing that border is just not what the Border Patrol has done on the border, but we send a message to the whole world. If you cross this border illegally, which is a crime, there are consequences. And because we've proven those consequences, we have the most secure border in history of this nation.
Turning now to some breaking news as we take a live look out of the White House in Washington, D.C. President Trump announcing that he will impose a 25% tariff on goods from India, plus an additional import tax because of India's purchasing of Russian oil. Bringing up here on your screen as well a statement from Truth Social by the president. Take a look here at your screen. He says this, quote, "Remember, while India is our friend, we have, over the years, done relatively little business with them because their tariffs are far too high, among the highest in the world, and they have the most strenuous and obnoxious non-monetary trade barriers of any country. Also, they have always brought a vast majority of their military equipment from Russia and are Russia's largest buyer of energy along with China, at a time when everyone wants Russia to stop the killing in Ukraine." He finishes off his statement by saying all things not good. India will therefore be paying a tariff of 25% plus a penalty for the above starting on August 1st. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. Back out live to the image that we have of the White House, as I do want to read some of the reporting courtesy of the Associated Press. The Census Bureau did report that the U.S. ran a $45.8 billion trade imbalance in goods with India last year, meaning that it imported a lot there from that country. In fact, more than it exported. At a population exceeding 1.4 billion people, India is the world's largest country and a possible geopolitical counterbalance to China. India and Russia have close relations, and New Delhi has not supported Western sanctions on Moscow over its war in Ukraine. President Trump discussed his policies on trade and tariffs with reporters accompanying him Tuesday on the flight home following that 5-day visit to Scotland. He declined to comment. Then, when asked about reports that India was bracing for a U.S. tariff rate of at least 25%, then he said, quote, "We're going to see." The president also said the outlines of a trade agreement with India have not yet been finalized, but we do know that as of this morning, at least as of Wednesday, the president did announce that he would impose that 25% tariff on goods from India, plus an additional import tax because of India's purchasing of Russian oil. In that post from Truth Social that I just showcased for you, he did say that India is, quote, "our friend, but its tariffs are far too high on U.S. goods." And then he added that India buys military equipment and oil from Russia, which President Trump hasn't said enables the war in Ukraine. And as a result, he does intend to charge an additional penalty starting this Friday as part of the launch of the administration's revised tariffs on multiple countries.
And this morning, I was really proud to join every single one of my Democratic colleagues on the Homeland Committee in invoking a century-old and little-known law known as the Rule of Five, to compel the Department of Justice to release the full and complete Epstein files. Under federal law, when any 5 senators on the Homeland Security Committee call on the executive branch must comply. Our request covers all documents, files, evidence, and other materials in possession of the DOJ, the FBI, related to the case of United States versus Jeffrey Epstein. While protecting the victims' identities can and must be of top importance, the public has a right to know who enabled, knew of, or participated in one of the most heinous sex trafficking operations in history. Let me remind everyone of what's happened in recent months. Donald Trump campaigned on releasing the Epstein files. He broke that promise. Trump should stop hiding from the truth. He should stop hiding from the American people. So today, Senate Democrats took action. We're invoking federal law and using our authority as a check on the executive to compel transparency.